Hey guys, welcome back to Shellriser Teaching. Our today's topic is the Great Trek. In one of our last video, we have discussed the Afrikaner nationalism, and in that video, we came across a term known as the Great Trek. So today we are going to discuss what was the Great Trek through some short points. So before starting the topic, I want to give you a short intro that when and where it happens. So in Southern Africa, when the Dutch people established and they evolved in Southern Africa, they used to call themselves Afrikaans and their language known as the Afrikaners. So basically, after their establishment, British thought to capture that Cape Colony, that is the southernmost point of the Southern Africa. So when British thought to capture that particular area of Southern Africa, these people get fed up of the British rule and they wanted some free land for themselves. So these Dutch people, or we can say the Afrikaans who were living in Southern Africa, they thought that they don't want the British rule over them and they start to move to the interior of Southern Africa. These peoples were also known as Boers and the Voortrekkers. As they wanted some free land, so they moved upward in the Southern Africa, where they reached to the Transvaal and to Orange Free State. So when they start to walk from the Cape Colony to this Transvaal and this Orange Free State, the path through they moved, that is known as the Great Trek. So this was the short intro, or we can say a short brief, what was the Great Trek was actually. So now we are going to read some short points. So here we go. The Great Trek was the mass movement of the Boers from the Cape Colony to the interior of the Southern Africa between the 1830 to 1840. So this I already told you that this was the mass movement of the people, or the Dutch people who were living in Africa as Afrikaans or Boers or Voortrekkers. They start to move from the Cape Colony to the interior of South Africa, and they did this movement between 1830 to 1840. They started move from the areas of Graaff-Reinet and Grahamstown. So basically in Cape Colony there are two places, one is the Graaff-Reinet and second is the Grahamstown. From there they started to move. They were led by several leaders. They have several leaders through this movement. Example: Pretorius, Louis Trichardt, Hendrik Protegerier, Van Dressenberg and Martes. They used ox wagon to carry their movable property. As in, they were moving from one place to another, so they were taking their things and their belongings with themselves, or their goods. So they used some ox wagon to move from one place to another. Now we are going to discuss what was the causes of Great Trek. The Boers' desire for independence from the British. Basically, these people wanted to be free from the British rule, or they want independence for themselves. They want some free land for themselves. That's why this Great Trek movement take place, and they move from the Cape Colony to the interior part of the Southern Africa. Availability of the vacant land in the interior. They thought that there is some vacant land in the interior of the Southern Africa where they can get free from the rule of the British. Some simply moved because of group influence. Some people were not much fed up of the British rule. They did this movement because they were influenced by the group movement. The love of adventure, we can say these people were in the love of adventure. That's why they started to move. The nomadic nature of the Boers, as Boers doesn't want anyone to rule on them, so that is also one of the reasons that they want independence again. Increased population at the Cape. We can also say that due to the invasion of the British in the Southern Africa, or in the Cape Colony, there was an increase in the population in the Cape Colony of Southern Africa. That is why also the Boers had took this decision to move into the interior of the Southern Africa. Annihilationization and the administration at the Cape. Emancipation of the slaves by the British in 1833. They were also they could be one of the reasons that they moved to the interior. That could be that British was using them as slaves in the southern Africa. The Boers resented the use of English instead of Dutch language. They doesn't want to use the English language and they want to use the Dutch language, which was also called as the Afrikaners or Africans at that time. They don't want the British language or the British influence on them or the British colonization of that particular area where the Dutch established their colonization. The long-term hatred between the British and the Boers. Definitely there was a long-term hatred between the British and the Boers because this was the midpoint in that is Cape Colony in the southern Africa when they used to move from the Europe to the Asian countries. So they used to rest over there where they already had a fight on this particular point. The rumors that the Boers were to marry Africans and serve in the army. There was a rumor that the Boers were to marry Africans and serve in the army. British people made an announcement that who are the Boers, or we can say who are the Dutch people that marry to Africans, they are compulsory to serve in the army. Boers hated the liberal policies of the British. British made some irrelevant policies in the southern Africa. That was also one of the reasons that they started to move. Boers want to keep their race pure. Boers just believe that they don't want to marry Africans, they don't want to marry those people such as the British or any other Asian people who were living in the southern Africa. They basically wanted to keep their race pure. That is why they want some free land where they can start their own life. So this was also one of the reasons that the Great Trek started. But what I thought that the main reason was the British rule. They doesn't want the British rule over them. That was seeking their freedom from these people, and they wanted their freedom back or their independence back. That's why they started to move to the interior of the southern Africa. I hope you got it, guys.